Okay, so continuing right along from last week, we stopped just about 3/4 of the way done with this mandala. So if you're all caught up, the next thing you're going to do is use yarn D, same hook and everything, using a 3mm. And what you're going to do is work in the front of the work this time, reach in, and on the tops of yarn A, this little shell here, we're going to work some single crochets. So find the very first single crochet and insert your hook into it. Okay, and you can just bend everything back because we'll be working in the front. And just work 4 single crochets right up that row. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, do a chain 1, and then find the yarn F and do a single crochet in the single crochet. I split it just a little bit, there we go. And then chain 1, and then work right back down this side here. So if you're not sure where to start here, you could count 1, 2, 3, and then you know this would be your 4th one to insert it into. 4 single crochets down the line. 1, 2, 3. And then we're going to anchor it down here. So just chain 1, single crochet around that post of yarn E. Chain 1, and then just continue that right along. So you'll work up this side again. 1, 2, 3. Kind of have to dig right in there and find that very first single crochet. Single crochet 4. Chain 1, and then single crochet in the single crochet from yarn F. Chain 1, and then 4 down this side. So when you get that all completed, it just adds a little color in here, and these lines should sit just inside your yarn F that you did previously. Okay, and then when you get all the way back around, you've done your last 4 single crochets coming back down. Go ahead and chain 1, single crochet into the post of yarn E. So it's really just going in from right to left, really super easy. Chain 1, and then you're just going to slip stitch to join it in that very first single crochet that you did. Cut it, bring it through, and then push these yarns to the back for now. Okay, and then next we're going to use yarn B, and we're going to travel along the outside of yarn G here. Okay, we're going to work into some of these silk picots where you have yarn G, but we're going to surround the outer line here. So what you're going to do is go into a picot. This is that little chain 3 space that you had before, and under yarn F. And then bring the yarn through and surround all of that, and then work a single crochet. Then chain 3. And then same thing again. Work into that next picot and under your yarn F chain. Bring the yarn through all of that. Work a single crochet. And then chain 3. Then work a single crochet just on the right side of the picot. Chain 3. A single crochet on the other side of the picot. So when you do that, just make sure your picot lands in front, like this. Okay. Chain 1, 2, 3. And then just right underneath here, you're going to go into the first picot. Remember, each loop here of that previous row G will have 2 little bumps on each side. Single crochet, chain 3, single crochet into the chain 3 space and under the yarn F, and then single crochet. So just manipulate it a little bit with your fingers to make sure that the single crochets are tight up against that picot there. And you've got this little bridge working. It's kind of fun to bring in a previous color from before. It just changes the entire look of the thing. And then to skip over this bottom picot, chain 1, 2, 3, and then start the process all again. Go into the picot, under the yarn F, chain, single crochet, chain 1, 2, 3, into the chain 3 space, under yarn F, chain 1, 2, 3, single crochet on this side of the picot, 1, 2, 3, single crochet on this side, and remember, just pop that little picot through, and you can scoot the single crochets up so that they're tight against the picot. 1, 2, 3, straight down into the next chain 3 space. 1, 2, 3, single crochet into the chain 3 space. 1, 2, 3, and then start it again here. So when you get all the way back around, the last thing you're going to do is chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then slip stitch in that first single crochet you did. Okay, then cut it, pop it through. And let's measure this guy. So this is a little bit, I think this is going to be a little bit bigger just because this yarn is heavier than my original one, but let's see where we're at. Actually, we're pretty good. We're exactly 5.5 by 5.5, which is what we're looking for. So we still have 2 rows left to do. Definitely the next row will not make this any bigger, but the final row will, which is where I have all of these black little shells here. So if yours is getting pretty big, you can still do the black. You don't have to do the shell here if it's going to extend beyond your 5.5 block, or maybe that's okay with you and it's just going to be bigger than the side of your box, which would be completely fine. So you can stop at this at any time. You can even stop it here if you like the way that it looks. But if you're going to go ahead and do the next row, get out your original color, which is your yarn A. So going back to yarn G, you'll find a long treble crochet, and then there's a chain 1 space over that. Go ahead and single crochet into that one, chain 2, and then come all the way up here to this last row that you did and find the chain 3 space. Now, not the one just to the left of the picot. We're going to leave that free. So if you're looking at the picot you did before, you've got that chain 3 space here, and then a single and a chain 3 space here. We're working into the next one just with a single crochet. All right, and then that will bring you to this middle part here where we're going to make a little shell. So in that space, you're going to single crochet, half double, double, half double, single. Okay, just put a little shell in there, then chain 2, single crochet in the next one, chain 2, and then we're going to leave that one free, but we're going to come down here and single crochet in the chain space above the treble crochet of yarn G. Let's put a single crochet in there, chain 2, and then come up and find that loop. It's right next to this middle part. That's where you're going to do your single crochet, chain 1, and then work your shell in here. Single, half double, double, half double, and single, and then we're going to chain 1, single crochet in the next loop, and then here's where you want to chain 2 in between going back down into the top of the treble crochet. Chain 2 to get back up, and then you'll do chain 1 in between these two. So you'll single crochet, chain 1, work your shell all the way around. And then as you can see, that doesn't change the size. It puts another point on the edge that's already created with these two. Okay, and then when you get back around and you've single crocheted in your last chain 3 space, you're going to chain 2 and then slip stitch in the very first single crochet you did to join it. Clip it and pop it through. So there's a lot of variables that will go into what your crochet mandala is going to look like. Obviously yarn sizes, hook choice, if you crochet loose or tight, and then also the brightness of where the pop colors go. Like this red here is the same as this one. It's a lot brighter on here. So it's just really interesting. So I'd love to see the photos of the yarns that you've chosen and what you're doing. We all would love to see that. And then just take your hands and manipulate, pull your little picots so that all of these little shapes are the same. Just manipulate it all the way around. So the last row will definitely take us over the 5.5 mark. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5. So we're exactly 5.5. We could call this good and put it right on the square, or we can work this last row. So the last row for me would be this turquoise. So of course I would love to get that back in on the outside. But the other option too is if yours is getting kind of big and you don't want to do that, when you stitch it onto the background, which is what we're going to do next, you can also use those colors and actually embroider to get even more lines of your mandala down. So there's a lot of different options here. So I'm going to go ahead and show you what I did here, and then an option if your mandala is getting as big as mine is here. For me, this doesn't really matter because I'm actually going to take this piece and I'm going to keep going with it because, again, it's not my alchemy colorway. But I do want to show you this in case yours is a little bit smaller and you do want these little fringes on the outside. So go ahead and grab yarn E and we'll work the very last row. Okay, so this is the last color, the last round. And what I did was go ahead and single crochet into the top of the arc of yarn D. Let's just make that a little bit more pointy. Then chain 7. 6, 7. Okay, and then we're going to work in the space right here behind the picot. So just slip stitch just to attach it. And then again, if your piece is smaller than the 5.5, you can go ahead and do this little fan here. If not, you really could just single crochet maybe, I'd say 5 times in here, chain 7, and then come back down to the stitch here. But I'll show you both. And this is the same, you'd slip stitch in both anyway. So if you're going to make the little fans, you chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. This is all within the same loop right behind that little picot there. Chain 2, double crochet, chain 2, double crochet, okay, until you have, including your original chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 legs. Then chain 4, slip stitch into that same arc there. Okay, then chain 7, come back down here and then single crochet into the single crochet of yarn D. Then chain 7, come back up behind the picot in that little chain 3 space and slip stitch. And then I'll just show you what it looks like if you don't want to have these up on there. After your slip stitch, just chain 1 and then maybe work 5 singles. And then remember, when you're working in a loop, you can just squish them over. Take your fingernails and just squish it on over. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5. And then from there, you can just chain 7 and come down and single crochet in there. So either way, this provides a little bit more height depending on the size of your mandala, and this provides just a little background for that picot to stand out in. So you can choose. I'm going to take that out and then just continue along with this because, as I said, I want to make this bigger. This one, like I said, it just is a little bit smaller because of the yarns that I used originally were a little bit smaller. So many variables, it's just hard to figure out exactly what size it's going to be. That's just the nature of freeform crochet. But as you can see, you have a ton of different choices on the yarns you use and the stitches that you do to make your own crocheted mandala. So again, I will be writing this pattern out. It will be available, I'd say, probably in the next few weeks, and I'll just let you know when that's available and up. And I will expand on this as well and maybe get some beads and some embroidery and some fabrics into it. All right, and then when you do your last chosen fan, on the last loop behind the picot, go ahead and chain your 7. And then just bring this down and slip stitch it to the beginning single crochet. Clip it, bring it through. And then of course you'll weave all of these into the back. So this now measures, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 inches, so not too off. But you can see that this one, my original one, is quite a bit smaller, and that fits perfectly on here. So again, if yours is getting a little bit bigger, just make those kinds of decisions out here where maybe you don't do these big shells, you just do the little fan. So this one is done for now. I'm going to set it aside and work on that later. But next I'm going to show you some ideas of how to attach the mandala to the background, and then also maybe we'll add some beads and some threads just to get a little bit more detail in there. Okay, so as you can see here, I put my background fabric on with a little 8 pearl cotton, made little tiny stitches. I went with a high contrast this time. I just thought that would be kind of pretty, something different. This is all experimental, so why not try new things on this guy? So I'm gonna sew this mandala onto the background, and I've got it clipped in place. These little shells here, you'll find that there's one north-south, east-west, and then there's 4 on the diagonal. So just as you're stitching, watch to make sure that your little shells are pointing towards the diagonal and it's sewn on straight. So I've just got it clipped right here. I'm just going to start here with the yarn, one strand of the yarn of this same color. Just come in from the back. And these stitches are really easy to hide through. And I'm going to go through the grid this time because I want this to puff up. I do have that layer of batting underneath the background. So I'll probably just put in, just follow along this trail of light color yarn. And then maybe I'll pop a stitch just right here. making sure that this is still going to angle towards the corner. Put a couple in here, just watching your angles. And I'm just stitching right underneath the crocheted stitch there. You'll never ever see it, it just sinks right down. So it's kind of great because there's no real right or wrong way. You know, you just stitch it on. Okay. And it is amazing once you get it sewn on how it looks like it's part of the piece. You know, it's just laying on here. It looks kind of, you know, just sticking up and just like it's slapped on. But once we stitch it on, it's just going to look more stable and more a part of the background piece. So go ahead and stitch that all the way around. Alrighty, and then I did a couple more stitches just in the center, just to pop that little center down. Well, let's just put a bead right in the middle. I'm going to come up with my needle, put on a sequence, a bigger bead, a size 8 bead on top of that. And then to hold it all in place, don't go through the size 8 bead again. Go around it and then down through the big bead and then down through the sequence. Just keeping that string in the center. And then I think I'll probably go up through all of them again, just so it doesn't wiggle. So here I'm up just through the first 2, then through the 8, and down through the big bead and the sequence. And then tie that off in the back. Okay, and then as I'm stitching on the rest of it, I'm just deciding, you know, let's add some beads and put some hardware in there and get that juxtaposition between the soft yarns and the shiny, solid hardcore of the bead. So all I'm doing here is I've just got 2 strands of thread F. And here you can see I put on a size 6 gold bead and a size 8 silver bead just over these 2 yarns, just stitching it down. I like to just go through it twice just so they stay in place there. And then to really lock them down, go through, see where you can see that string between the beads. Come up on one side of it, go down on the other side, and it locks them right in place. Up above that, I've decided to put in size 6 copper, working just in that little hole under the picot. He just kind of tucks down in there. And then here, same thing, going through the picot just so I can stitch that down. Same bead, a size 6 copper. And then just making sure to stitch down that little fan or the shell or whatever you decided to do there. And that one I will go through twice. Just coming up, trying to come up in the exact same hole there. it doesn't really matter what beads you decide to put. Just pick away and stay consistent, and then your eye will go to that. You know, it'll look symmetrical and consistent. It'll look really, really great. And then at the tops of these picots here, I'm coming in, like if you lift up this little point, you'll see where I have the gold yarn, the G. And then here I'm putting 2 white size 6 seed beads and a copper. And then I'm taking that just right underneath here. Right, I'm going to go through it twice. Come up just where you came out of before here. Go through them again. And then of course on each one, you're going to want to come up in between the beads on one side of the bead thread. On the other side of the bead thread, go down and lock that right in place. And then just repeat whatever it is that you decided to do. Just repeat them in every place all the way around, and it'll look even more nailed down to the back and consistent. Alrighty, just to finish it up, I decided just to take that yarn, main yarn color, 2 strands of it, just doing some little spoked pinwheels, kind of in line with those 2 beads there. And then I think at each shell right here, I'm gonna just do a stem stitch. So just come up right at the corner of where this line is coming down. And then just remember to keep the thread on the outside as you stitch around the shell. And I think that brings enough color, and you know, who knows, maybe I'll play with it later, but I think for now, I am liking it. And then back down. So I've got those 2 done, and it does make a difference just having that gold in there. If you want those lines thicker, of course, you can always just go through and do them twice. You can weave ribbon inside here. I mean, the possibilities are endless. So here's my mandala all completed. I might scavenge for buttons and put them in the corners, I don't know. But oh my gosh, I have so much more that I wanted to share with you guys in this video. But dang, this crochet mandala stuff takes a long time to demo. So next week we'll be working with fabrics. I want to do a symmetrical crazy patch. So next week I'll be showing you how to do that in the form of a butterfly. It'll be a cross between crazy quilting and turned applique. So when you're ready, go ahead and pull 5 or 6 fabrics that coordinate with the colors you're using. A 5.5-inch piece of felt or fabric for a background, and you'll be ready to go. But just to wet your whistle, I'm going to show you how to draw it out. So what you want to do is just grab like a piece of cardstock. This is watercolor paper. It's really thick, so I can use it as templates. I'm going to draw out a 5.5-inch square, just so I have the background set. Okay, that's 5.5, and then 2.75 is the halfway mark. So we're just going to draw a line down the center, create the symmetrical little butterfly. Even if you've never drawn before, this is pretty simple. We're going to just cut it. We're going to take the lines and just make it really simple. So I'd say probably 2 inches down, just make an arc from here to the corner. And maybe 1.5 inches down from that. Let's make sort of a butterfly shape. Starting maybe 1.5 inches from here or so. Make a little arc down to the corner. That's butterfly-esque, good enough for me. And then we're going to split this into thirds, each one. So we've got that. And then that. Make a line separating that. You see how it's just simple lines. You can copy what I've done here. You can make your own. Envisioning where I want these fabrics here, I'm going to order them. So I'm thinking I want these to lay outside. We are going to be turning the edges on the outside pieces, anything that lays on the outside. So I'm thinking we'll do this for 1. This will be the first piece of fabric we lay down. 2, 3. And then 4, 5, 6. So I'm going to use a white felt background, and I'm going to use 6 different fabrics for my butterfly pieces. And then I'm going to, like Crazy Patch of Fashion, treat each seam with a stitch. So take some time for yourself and enjoy the process. Gather some small scraps of fabrics, a small iron, and a needle and thread, and you'll be ready to go. Here are a couple photos that came through on Mandala Unplugged on Facebook by your fellow stitchers. Thanks you guys so much for sharing your beautiful work. Nicely done. If you're watching this in real time, happy Memorial Weekend, stay safe and enjoy each moment. See you next week for some fun with fabric.